Eagle Mountain Apostolic Resource Center. To find additional episodes of this program, as well as other content, visit eaglemountain.tv.
I found the devil.
The devil?
I found him.
Really? Is this him?
No.
In this wheelchair?
No. He's over here in this bucket. I kid you not. There he is. Mr. Sin!
Oh my
Not
goodness.
bothering us anymore.
And I remember her saying, okay, you're going to play Mr. Sin today. And she hands me this purple puppet with the nasty mustache. Pop the little puppet up, and literally on cue, 80 kids out there all, boo, no, yuck, I hate that guy. I was like, man, these guys are trained on cue. Like, I don't know if they got candy for doing that or what. But
Oh, man. They just want to come down on
deep
someone.
theological teaching. Deep theological teaching.
Well,
Hey everyone, welcome to Together We Build. My name is Chris Behnke. I'll be hosting this, and I'm here today with Prudence O'Hare. Prudence.
good afternoon.
Good
or morning
afternoon.
or night.
Good afternoon.
Whenever you're watching this.
And Bobby Haaby.
Hey guys, how are you?
Good. We're
Good.
doing good. Here's a question. I did not say how are you, because I've been informed that's not the thing to say every time. So instead, what is your favorite ice cream flavor between vanilla and chocolate?
I would say fresh strawberry.
Definitely chocolate.
Between vanilla and chocolate, definitely fresh strawberry. Chocolate? Really?
Yes.
Chocolate?
Yeah, love chocolate.
I think I'm going with vanilla.
Ooh.
I would go with probably chocolate too. Yep.
Yeah.
When it comes to ice cream.
Now, if you could have any flavor, what would it be?
Strawberry, probably.
Strawberry.
I really like the strawberry flavor.
Chocolate.
You'd still go
Oh,
chocolate?
totally chocolate.
Really?
I'm chocolate, like double fudge or
so
brownies.
you want like the stuff in it,
Oh
and
yeah,
the chunks.
Yeah. Let's do
Chocolate peanut butter or chocolate only?
it. Ooh, chocolate peanut butter would be a strong second, but chocolate with brownies, if we're talking ice cream, all day.
That does sound really
Yeah.
good. We should just cut this recording right now. Let's
do it.
Go get some ice cream. That sounds really good. Okay. No, we're not going to do that. We've got an important topic. Not a time to fear. This is part two of a three-part. We're estimating three. Could be four. You don't know. But this is definitely part two of a probably three-part series on fear. The last episode we did, if you didn't see that, you need to go check it out. We dug into AI. If you don't know what AI is, then that's a perfect reason to go check out the other episode. So definitely do that. It's important. But what we wanted to do on these is dig into the things that are kind of universally we're finding that people are afraid of. So there's a couple ways you find this. One is you look at the polls. There's like polls. What are you afraid of? What are you afraid of? And two is you just look at the way people talk and the dialogue that they have, and sometimes you can discover some things. So the last episode was awesome. We talked about AI and kind of a general kingdom perspective of how we feel you should look at that and approach it, and to some degree respect it, but also not be afraid of what's happening. And then for this episode, the next episode, we wanted to pull Bobby in. He's a senior leader at Eagle Mountain Apostolic Resource Center, to really talk about some of these other things because they're very serious. So we're going to break this into a couple different episodes, and I'm excited about it. But before we do all that, you know what we got to do? I've got the buttons. So that means we've got to do the trivia. And I was thinking, which is what made me think of the ice cream, that we should do trivia on food.
Food.
Yeah, what do you think of that? Prudence.
All right, let's get it
Okay,
going.
so you guys
I
ready?
did bring some glasses.
I always make this joke that
Completely up to you.
Prudence gets 100% on everything. We all know that's not true, okay? We all know that's not true. However, I think the last time Bobby was on, I think he actually completely destroyed you.
We'll see on the food thing though. I'm kind of a little intimidated.
Really?
A little.
You shouldn't be.
I know, since we're
Because
talking
this,
about
what
it.
I found is called, it's gone. It's unusual food quiz.
Here we go.
Unusual food quiz.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. All right. Wait a second.
Oh, she's going blindfolded.
Yeah. That way I can.
That's fair. That's smart.
I can make sure that.
Way to be 100% honest,
No,
Prudence.
they're
Right.
not, like looking at his
She
screen.
can't see the answers.
Okay. There we go.
All right, sweet.
Okay, and if you're watching this, then put in the comments the answer before Prudence or Bobby.
Do I look ridiculous or what?
No, you look absolutely stunning. Stunning. Okay.
Okay. Let's go. Let's go.
Stunning. All right. Here we go. Which fruit turns the flavor of sour foods sweet?
Lemon.
Lemon? Really? Okay. I actually have to click to reveal the answer, so I'm not sure. Prudence? Which fruit turns the flavor of sour foods sweet?
Is it brown sugar?
All I can say is it's totally fake news.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. All right.
Is it brown sugar? According to this, it says the miracle berry, which I feel like isn't a thing. So lemon, is that a thing? So lemon turns sour food sweet.
Well, I know.
I mean-
it definitely takes
Here's your-
acid
your
out
microphone's a
of some things.
little-
Takes some
there you go.
acid out of things.
Right. It does do that.
Well, lemon has a lot of sugar too,
I'm
right?
gonna say blueberry.
No, it's miracle berry.
It's a miracle. Oh, that's the name
That's
of it?
the answer according to this. Okay, this is from quiz.questions.uk, so I don't know if we can trust this, but we're going to go with it anyway. All right, what color are Chinese 1,000-year-old eggs? What color are Chinese 1,000-year-old eggs?
What kind of eggs are these?
1,000-year-old eggs.
Dinosaur eggs?
I don't know. I think a Chinese 1,000-year-old egg is a dish, which sounds real tasty.
Wow. This is a guess. I'm going blue.
Blue, okay. Blue's the first guess. Prudence?
Seafoam green.
Sea. You guys are both correct. It's black.
Yes.
All right.
Yuck.
Yeah,
Nice.
that just is 1,000-year-old egg. I mean, I wonder if it's really 1,000 years. I'm gonna have to look that up.
Right.
So I don't know that it could be any color but black if it's actually 1,000 years.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, I mean, mummies are kind of gray. So we guess we could have picked that shade.
True. You could have picked gray, mummy gray.
Okay.
Is that a Crayola color? Mummy
I think
wrapping
it would
gray.
sound like a decent
Burial
color to me.
clothing gray. Okay, question number 3. Which 2 venomous animals are added to wine in Vietnam?
Oh, gross.
That's way less gross than a 1,000-year-old egg.
Venomous animals
Yeah.
added to wine?
Okay, I'll read it again. Which 2 venomous animals are added to wine in Vietnam?
Some lizards and snakes, I
Lizards
guess.
and
Did they
snakes.
squeeze out the whole system into the wine, or is it just the little pocket things out
I'm
of the
telling you,
mouths?
at quiz-questions.uk, I don't get that much data. But so you're gonna have to
Okay.
leave that
How
to your
about you, Bobby?
imagination.
I'm going to go with cobra snakes.
Cobra
and
snakes.
specifically
Maybe spiders.
Quit whispering. It's his turn.
python venom.
Python venom. Well, okay. So the answer according to this is snake and scorpion. So you're both kind of right.
Scorpion.
Scorpion.
Ah,
Yeah.
there you go.
Which, seems very
It's kind of
manly.
lizardy.
I feel like it doesn't make sense in wine.
spidery.
That's like a hard liquor kind of thing. Like, wait, don't they put something like that in tequila? Is they put a scorpion? No, it's a worm.
Worm.
Okay, that's straight up not good. Okay. What is Kopi Luwak, the most expensive coffee in the world, also known as?
We don't know.
Kopi Luwak.
Liquor.
Probably
it's
not.
coffee liquor.
It's the most expensive coffee in the world. What is it?
It's a coffee liquor.
Bobby knows this one. He knows it. He doesn't know it.
I do not.
Cat poo coffee.
Oh, gross.
Yeah, so the
How is
cats
this
eat
even
the
a
coffee
thing?
beans, and then later on,
No way.
They harvest them. There's a monkey one too. That's a real thing. I know that's a
You're
real
not
thing.
helping his love of animals now. Let's
No.
move on to
No
the next
wonder
thing.
I'm.
It's all right. I'm okay if he doesn't like cats.
Hey, I like
Okay.
kitties.
Okay. At least one more. Which processed meat is popular in Hawaii?
Spam.
So we got a spam from Prudence.
That's actually a really good answer. I'm going to say, just to provide another answer.
Contrast. It's contrast.
Yes. I'm going to say sardines.
Sardines. The answer is spam. Nice job. Oh, I almost hit fake news. All right. All right, one more. What is the name of this? Okay, wait a second. This website's a little bit. Okay, what's the name of the stick-shaped boiled sugar sold at British seasides?
One more time on that, please.
It's almost like a tongue twister. Sally sold sea. Okay, what is the name of the stick-shaped boiled sugar? So it's a candy. What is the name of the stick-shaped boiled sugar sold at British seasides? It's sweet.
Your mother probably would know the answer to this.
She very well may. In fact, I'm certain she does. But she's not here to answer this question, Prudence.
I'm not sure I know it.
Did that bring you slightly closer to the answer? Then?
Wow. Did that? Yeah, was that helpful? I mean, come on. No looking.
A candy cane stick.
Candy cane stick.
Sugar stick. I don't know.
Sugar stick. Bobby?
I'm going to go with, they call it, because they've always got their nicknames for everything. I'm going to go with thwack.
Or lollipop.
The whack.
Maybe it's a lollipop.
So the whack gets, is not right, but it's like right enough. Because it's such a good name. They call it, are you ready for this? You ready for this?
Yeah.
Rock.
See?
Okay. All right. That's enough food trivia. I like this food trivia.
Go get some rock.
Man, it's bright out here.
Yes. We were about to give you some Visine for those eyes.
Well, why didn't you wear those? Those are funny because they shake around.
I know, but you can actually kind of see through them. So if I were just going to be real honest.
So you didn't want to
Could have
cheat.
possibly seen the
You didn't want to
answer.
cheat. Okay. So I guess if we're talking about fear, do any of those foods that we mentioned in the trivia cause fear? Several do on my list,
Well, I
to
tell
be
you what, they cause
really blunt.
indigestion.
So here are the ones I'm afraid of. The black 1,000-year-old eggs from China. The snake and scorpion wine from Vietnam. The cat poo coffee from that's called Kopi Luwak. Spam,
Disgusting.
I would have listed that, but
anyone.
after seeing these other items, I think spam I'm okay with now.
Yeah.
And I'm not okay. I am totally on board with rock candy sold at the British
absolutely.
seaside
Yeah.
made of boiled sugar. That's the only one that I'm really a fan of, to be honest. And I feel like the first one, Miracle Berry, I think they just made that up. I've never heard of a Miracle Berry.
Is that the gooseberry? I feel like we have
No,
this trivia or something a
it's
couple
a
days
Miracle Berry. It's a Miracle Berry. Okay, so all right, let's move over to fear. Having a healthy fear of a 1,000-year-old Chinese egg dish is reasonable. So let's talk about fears. So there's a couple polls that have been done, and I'm going to go through the top 10 things that people listed in this poll that they're afraid of. And then we can kind of group them into a couple groups. But what I want to do is I want to tackle these fears from the standpoint of a kingdom perspective. And I think it's really important that we think about stuff like this from a kingdom perspective, because if you don't, the second heaven kind of worldly logical answer will be reasonable. It's not that it sounds reasonable, it's that it is reasonable. So without a kingdom perspective, a lot of things aren't how we should be thinking, but it's a very reasonable thing to think. Does that make sense? The only way to really have a heavenly perspective, a kingdom perspective on this is to actually purposefully have one. Because if you just kind of go about life, then you'll be afraid of a lot of stuff, actually. So here are the top 10 things that people from the U.S. said they're most afraid of. Number 1, corrupt government officials. Now, this is not a poll of Christians. This is a poll of average adult Americans. So I would imagine that in other Western, like European countries and stuff, will be very similar, actually. But this is universal. So this isn't like right-wing conspiracy people. The number 1 fear is corrupt government officials across the board. Number 2, people I love becoming seriously ill. Number 3, and I think this is weird, Russia using nuclear weapons. So specifically listing Russia using nuclear weapons. And I think that's probably a sign of exactly what's happening over the last 12 months. But my guess is in a different season 2 or 3 years ago or 2 or 3 years from now, it may just be nuclear weapons. You know, I don't know. People I love dying. Number 5, the U.S. becoming involved in another world war. Number 6, pollution of drinking water, which also seems a little crazy to me that people are actually thinking specifically about their drinking water being polluted or poisoned in the U.S. Number 7, not having enough money for the future. Number 8, economic and financial collapse. Number 9, pollution of oceans, rivers, and lakes. And number 10, biological warfare. So I think if you look at those things and kind of group them into 3 areas, it's kind of like health, family, death, pandemic, like a fear of health, a fear of losing health, either for yourself or those that you love. That's like one group. Financial instability, collapse, and my own personal financial well-being. That's a group. And then government overreach / don't trust my government not to get us involved in a war. So it's really government distrust would be the third group. So I think that's just very interesting. So before we really even get into this, like, what do you guys think about that? That's a little bit crazy. That isn't the list I would have thought, actually.
Yeah. Well, I think, isn't death like the number 1 fear usually of people?
Well, so the way they did this poll is people could kind of free form put in there.
Yeah.
And then they
a lot of
grouped
those on
them
the
together.
list is like getting taken out.
Yeah, so
and
corrupt
dying.
government officials, I feel like that's kind of a combo of I don't trust them to watch out for me financially. I don't trust them to watch out for my physical safety.
Or even just, if you have information on some other official, they're afraid to say anything. How many times has that happened?
Yeah, I think the average American isn't really got dirt on Hillary Clinton, but you never know. But I think just the distrust of government is the number 1 across the board in adults in the U.S.
Yep.
Which is pretty crazy.
I can see that.
But yeah, like number 2 is sickness. Number 3 is nuclear war. Number 4 is people I love dying. Number 5 is being involved in a world war. Like it's like a common theme.
Yeah. It was surprising to me how the fear of polluted drinking water was higher on the list than economic.
Right. So the fear of polluted drinking water is 6, not having enough money 7, economic financial collapse 8.
Yeah.
So 7 and 8 kind of go
So
together.
people are
but
more afraid of something in their water than they are of economic collapse.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
For some reason, I would have never guessed the water thing would be on there at all.
Yeah. Yeah. That was surprising.
It is.
So let's do something about it. Let's change the world. That's what my solutionary is thinking.
Let's change the world. So I guess I think I'd like to just tackle all 3 of these. So first of all, Prudence, you have some quotes here that you came up with.
Oh, I didn't come up with these.
You didn't?
I got them from other places.
Well, I mean, they're not your quotes. They're quotes that you found on fear that other people have said. So you want to just drop one of those on us real quick?
Sure.
Because I don't want to get down the road and not have used any of these quotes.
How about this one? Fear does not exist anywhere except in the mind. And this is by Dale Carnegie.
Dale Carnegie. What do you think about that? Is that true? Is that actually true, Prudence? Fear does not exist anywhere except the mind.
Well, it's let's see. Another one of these answers this. Fear is a reaction. And courage is a decision, Winston Churchill says. So
that's good.
it's something, I think fear is something that we are afraid of happening in the future to us. So it hasn't happened. We literally have it in our minds that it's a possibility.
Yeah.
And then that stops us from going into any of those places or doors that it could possibly happen.
Yeah.
And so just like, one of those little balloon pumps, we just get that pump in there and that fear and just start
Blowing it up. Yeah. So that the whole fear is only in the mind thing. I mean, that is technically true. Same with pain. Like it's all in your head, but it's manifest from real things. So I think, as we look at these, I'd love to hear, what are your thoughts, Bobby? So we have these three main areas and they're different but related, right? Like being afraid of financial collapse of our entire country is kind of related to not trusting the government, kind of related to government overreach, kind of related to being afraid of another pandemic. So kind of all related, but just from a kingdom, from a biblical standpoint, just fear in general for these kind of tangible things. Because I feel like this whole list is, and I think on the next episode, we're going to dig into some of the untangible side, but this list is all real tangible. What are you afraid of? Well, I'm afraid of a nuclear war. Okay. It's like a very tangible kind of fear that they're afraid of. But what would you say just our perspective should be at the highest level with regards to all of this kind of thing?
Yeah, it's a good question. I love how in all of our programs here at Eagle Mountain, we just not afraid to tackle some of these things. So great on you guys for going after it. If faith is the currency of heaven, which we know it is, then fear is the currency of hell. The Bible's super clear that there is a spirit of fear. And the Bible's super clear that God's not given us a spirit of fear, right?
Right.
Spirit of power, love, and a sound mind. So when you are afraid, the reason why God's given us a spirit of power, spirit of love, and a sound mind is because fear will make you feel powerless. So that's why that verse says God's given us something that makes you feel powerful. If you feel powerless, that means a spirit of fear is trying to come after you. So I love what you mentioned about Dale Carnegie only existing in the mind, but I would take it a step further and say it's also a spirit. And so we need to deal with it on that level for sure. So God's given us a spirit of power, and so we don't have to feel powerless. He's given us a spirit of love. And sometimes people, when they don't feel loved, they want to control. And so they're going in the opposite spirit and feeling like, okay, I need to control this relationship. And so it's the opposite of what God's given us. He's given us a love that trusts, that hopes all things, that believes all things, and then a sound mind. Fear likes to do the opposite of giving you a sound mind. And it will come and bring all kinds of confusion, all of those things. So, gosh, I love that verse because those three things bash fear. But truly, there is if faith is the currency of heaven, which it is, everything that happens in our lives as Christians is due to the level of our faith. then everything that happens in the demonic realm is due to the level of fear. Both realms are seeking to be made manifest. Heaven is made manifest by your faith, and hell is made manifest by your fear. It'll actually bring what you fear into the tangible if you sit there and dwell on what you fear. You sit there and talk about demons, all of a sudden, stupid stuff will start happening in your house. If you talk about heaven, then amazing stuff will start happening in your house. It's fear or faith reacted.
Wow. So faith, so you said faith is the currency of heaven. So press into that a little bit more, because I feel like, actually, let me back up a second. So like I wrote down several things. One of them I think is very simple yet profound, typically overlooked, is that God actually designed us to be powerful. So if that's true, then Satan wants to create a scenario where we don't know that, where we don't realize that.
Yeah.
And that's where you were going with the fear, right? Like he's using fear to kind of like lower the effectiveness of the power that we actually have.
Yeah, exactly. So God's not given us a spirit of fear, but, so here we are in contrast, but in the opposite, power, spirit of power. And Satan does not like when you are powerful in any situation. When you hold on to the power of God, you understand your role. He wants you disempowered. Right. So that verse is giving us a clue into how Satan goes after powerful people. He'll bring fear.
Got it. I mean, it's very logical, actually.
Yeah.
Like this is what's going on. I'm going to combat it. I'm going to combat it with fear. Fear is very powerful, very tangible.
Yep.
Straightforward.
Yep.
So a lot of the roots of fear is, or maybe the root of a large root of fear is the thought that you can't control something, right?
Yeah.
Basically,
Yes.
We literally have no control over what we're afraid of.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're 100% right. So if we're feeling disempowered, a fear will jump on that. Fear looks for moments where we feel traumatized or disempowered, and he'll jump on that and just go, okay, there you go. Now you feel disempowered. I'm going to exacerbate even the smallest feeling of disempoweredness and then blow it up.
Right.
And so, yeah, it's not by accident. There is a spirit of fear, and it's not, Satan's always trying to exacerbate and blow it up. The acronym for fear that people say is false evidence appearing real. There's something to be said about that. We'll find out at the end of the age, the Bible says, that Satan was not as big as we made him to be.
Yep. Let's see. Alexander McLaren says, only he who can say, the Lord is the strength of my life, can say, from whom shall I be afraid?
So this quote is saying only somebody that actually has God being the strength can legitimately say, I have nothing to fear.
Yeah. When the Lord is in the driver's seat entirely and fully, you're, what do you have to be afraid of?
Yeah.
Right.
Isn't that awesome? He took that quote from King David, from the Bible. And David says this, the Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? Of whom shall I be afraid?
Right.
So when the Lord is your light and your salvation, David's going, that boots fear.
Right.
Yeah.
So, okay. So in the spirit of not being afraid to talk about tough things, when you make agreement with the spirit of fear, is that actually sin?
Yes.
Right.
100%. Yeah. The Bible actually goes on further than that and says anything not from faith is sin.
So this is why we have to practice a daily repentance of this sort of thing, because I think that largely
That's really
we
good.
don't see it that way. We just see it as a normal human emotion that is just there, and we're always just going to have to deal with it. And it just is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to dig into that. I want to dig into that because
But actually, it's really, really harmful to us.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Right.
I want to dig into that, Prudence, because I think what you're talking about is, I think the normal response is, I wish I wasn't afraid of it, but I am. Not, wow, being afraid of this is actually wrong. So that's like a different than I think most people, and that's just like the enemy, right? To like just normalize it,
Yeah. Not a lot of people get counsel in terms of how to get out of their fear as an act of repentance. Most people want to go, have either what's happening stop so that they cannot be afraid, or somehow get fear lifted off of them through deliverance or the prayer of someone else. But often one of the greatest ways to turn the key to lock the door against fear, you can do all of those things,
Right.
but you will have to be personally engaged and
Yeah.
personally responsible. You can't abdicate personal responsibility. There is a repentance that is involved in overcoming fear.
Right.
Totally. Yeah. Max Lucado says the presence of fear does not mean you have no faith. Fear visits everyone, but make your fear a visitor and not a resident. And what do we think about that?
I think Max is hitting it. I've heard it said similarly, just in a different way. Like, courage doesn't mean the absence of fear. Courage is what you do in fear.
Yeah.
Right.
Right? That's courage steps up.
You
in
got a
moments of fear.
courage one in there, don't
Yeah.
you? What is a courage one?
Well, the Winston Churchill, fear
yeah,
is a
that's right.
reaction and courage is a decision.
Right.
So courage is standing in the face of that reaction and saying no.
Yeah. Yeah. It doesn't deny that, fear is around you. It doesn't
Yeah.
deny it. It just, courage is the response of what happens in moments of fear.
So is what you're saying then that the sin is actually when you recognize the fear but don't appropriately address it? So it's just like the temptation isn't actually the sin. It's
allowing it to make that decision for you and those daily decisions for you, you think?
I do. I think
Yeah.
it's because we have a choice in it, and there's some things that, it's not just like, think about the things that you may fear. And they're things that have a grip on your mind or heart. They're things that mean something to you. The enemy is not going to just come after you on things that you'd be like, I have no fear with that.
right.
It's always the things that mean something to you or your family or whatever. So, you didn't just stumble into fear. You walked in through a scope. A crosshairs have been following you because the enemy is tailor making your fear to your kind of person.
Wow.
Right.
So it's not generalized. It's specific to who you are. So understanding that part of the battle will highlight not only what the enemy is doing, like Paul said, don't be ignorant of Satan's devices, but hopefully it'll also make you understand the power that you carry and what he's trying to stop.
Wow. Wow.
So in this quote,
That's good.
your largest fear carries your greatest growth.
That's good.
So
That's irritating.
kind of just taking a look at that and saying, oh, well, something wants me to not go past this and heal from this and restore this, because if I do, what's on the other side of that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Success.
Absolutely. I mean, think about the last 3 to 5 years that we've walked through. I mean, how many songs and how many companies? I saw a company the other day just across the street from a coffee shop that Becky and I were hanging out at. The name of the company in bold letters is called Brave. And I'm like, I think I've sat in this coffee shop a million times, maybe not that many, but a lot of times. And I don't know that I've ever noticed that sign before.
Right.
And so how many songs were written about bravery? How in the last 3 to 5 years, how many books were written on courage and all of that sort of thing? Our grandparents knew that level of courage because of the war, and then we skipped a generation or two. And maybe our parents knew that, but there's a fight for courage right now.
Yeah.
And there's a generation who hasn't learned how to be that courageous because it seems the battle has been done for them.
Right.
And there's a tragedy to that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Completely agree.
That is super, unfortunately, that is super true. And I think that's all the more reason that we need to be working to teach people how important it is, actually. So we don't repeat history. So we don't let the enemy take back all the ground that was fought, for us and so forth. So okay. So let's transition to a kingdom approach to this. So here's the truth. The truth is that people listed these 10 things. These 10 things, there's many more fears than this, right? They listed these. All these things are very, tangible kind of things. And like we were saying earlier, it's kind of a couple different groups. It's like health and dying, pandemics. It's like financial craziness. And it's like not trusting the government for protection, finances, safety, the things that are believed that the government's role should be. So first of all of those things have real, legitimate reason to cause fear. Like there's a lot of not great things in every one of those areas.
Yeah.
So the fears, I guess what I'm trying to say is the fears are well-founded. They're reasonable and they're well-founded. But we're not supposed to have a spirit of fear. So what is the kingdom way to look without pretending like truth isn't there and saying, oh, there's no reason to be afraid of, economic collapse in our country. No, there is a lot of reason to be afraid of economic collapse, but what's God's approach to this? What's the kingdom approach to this?
Well, I think that all of this bigger stuff is stacked upon a foundation of tinier things.
Ooh, a foundation of tinier things. What do you mean?
It's the tiny things people don't realize that they have to work through in order to eradicate these first. So it's the fear of the success in our life. It's the fear of a restoration in our relationships. The large one is very much the relationships around us. Like if we can't face the little fears that we have, there's no way we're going to be able to face that.
Yeah.
You have to start with the little stuff.
It's interesting.
That's really good.
What I'm thinking about as you're saying this is all of these fears are kind of like out there. It's stuff people don't have control of.
Right.
And what I hear you saying is before we can look at the stuff we don't have control of, we have to tackle the fears of the stuff we do have control of that no one's brave enough to admit on one of these polls.
Yes.
Which is kind of what we're going to go after in the next part of this series. But so someone says, oh my goodness, like, what are you worried about, Bobby? Oh, I'm worried that, the government is total economic collapse is upon us. What do you say to someone that, has that fear? Like, what's a kingdom approach?
Yeah, I go back to some of my personal mountain that I've had to climb in regards to this. And the first time fear shows up, is when Satan shows up in the garden. And you remember that? I mean, that's just like, here's Adam walking with God in the cool of the day, enjoying sonship and unbroken union with the Lord. Satan comes in and tempts them, and they give in to the temptation. And then all of a sudden, the next thing is, here's God calling out to Adam, where are you? And he says, I heard your voice, and hid myself
Right.
because I was afraid.
Right.
The first response to sin is fear. And it changed man's relationship to God. Right. Now, the very voice that he used to, enjoy in the cool of the day made Adam want to hide himself. I heard your voice and I hid. So what happened to that voice? Something started that was like a snowball downhill when Adam said that in the garden, so much so that if you fast forward to Exodus, and here's God wanting to speak to all of his people at Mount Sinai.
Right.
And he begins to speak and they go, whoa.
Yep.
Your voice is repulsive to us. It makes us afraid. And they said the same thing that Adam did. We're out of here. Send Moses up alone. And can you imagine that wound in the heart of the Father? Your voice makes me want to run.
Right.
And that's what's going on. And the only thing that changed was the introduction of sin. The only thing that changed was Satan going, hey, here is this. And they had an idea now, and God's voice made them afraid. So there's a lot of people that are still afraid of what God might ask of them.
Yeah.
Of the greatness of his calling on their life, of what he might require, of what the Bible requires. There's 12 different reasons, to add to that list, why people don't want to walk with God. Some people just don't want to give up their lives for Jesus, because they think they'll have to give up more than he'll give them.
Yeah.
Like ridiculous type of things. It's like, no, you'll actually get 1 billion times more than you ever gave up.
Right.
Irrational fears. And that's what we've got to tackle in these episodes, is that all fear is based on a lie. It's the opposite of truth.
Wow.
And so truth is the antidote for fear. And so there is no fear in love. Perfect love casts out all fear. So how do I then get back to that place before Adam sinned? Because Jesus said he replaced what the first Adam did and became the second Adam. So how do I walk in that place where God's voice does not make me afraid? Nothing makes me afraid. And I understand that if I'm afraid of anything, I'm disconnected from the truth about God in that area. So Lord, highlight it.
Right. Man, so a couple things. So I think I mentioned this in the last episode, but the science speaks to the same thing. When a baby's born, there's only two fears: loud noises and heights. That's it. All other fears are learned. So if you go back to that same passage in Genesis, God's response was, "Who told you to be afraid?"
Yeah.
So that right there says that Satan's probably number one, first, most effective, and most often used tool is fear. And just like you were saying, Bobby, he tailor crafts it to the person to make it the most effective possible. It's like the snake venom stuff that they make specifically, like the rattlesnake bite takes a special rattlesnake anti-venom. Like you have to have the right one. So it's like a tailor-made for the poison. So it's a tailor-made attack on you that matches you perfectly.
That's good, Chris. That's good. And if you look into it, it'll help define your call.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. But what do you mean by that?
Yeah. So the antivenom thought that you just had. So if you look into the fears that the arrows of fear that the enemy has sent your way, it will help you to define your call, because the very thing that he's trying to stop you from doing, you're actually called to do.
Yeah. So this goes back to this whole talent scout thing, right? So like the enemy is a unbelievably dedicated student of who we are.
Yeah.
So he is trying to figure out exactly what God is doing with us, why he made us, so that he can then create a counter move against it.
Yep.
So what's the right approach? So when somebody's like, oh my goodness, have you built your bomb shelter? And is it full of dehydrated food? So how do you balance what's the right approach? Because you also don't want to be flippant and not pay attention and not be wise and not be unprepared.
Yeah.
But how do you have a kingdom perspective when real things it's true that there's some stuff to be nervous about from a standpoint of trusting. Like, yes, I should be concerned, but I shouldn't be concerned.
Yeah.
How do you balance that?
Yeah, it's such a good question. The people who are very studious around us, and they're always prepared, they're always 5 steps ahead. Pretty sure Becky's, if you're watching, sweetie, she's always 5 steps ahead of me. And it's amazing because that's a gift from God. So there's nothing wrong with being prepared.
Right.
There's just something wrong with fear.
Right.
So
unlink them first is what I'm hearing you say.
yes, exactly. Make sure that your preparedness is not from fear.
It doesn't become an obsession.
Right.
Yes. Just check yourself on motives for being prepared or motives for being dialed, or, some people, they respond to fear in different ways. Like some people control because they've been wounded. So they want to make sure they'll even change their personality, come out of who they are to be domineering, just so that they can control the relationship, when if you do an assessment on them, that's not their makeup at all. They're actually having to overfunction, but the fear is driving them to do that. And gosh, how long are you going to do that? Some do it for 20 and 30 and 40 years or all their life, and they're exhausted having to keep up with that. So the biggest reconnection to overcoming those things is, number one, just ask yourself the question, why do I fear? Why should I fear? I mean, the Psalms are riddled with that. David's being honest with the Lord. Why then should I fear?
Right.
The Lord is with me. Why should I fear? And he would talk himself through that. So let's say the worst case scenario does happen. And David's all, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, you're with me. And he's verbally processing, going, wait a minute. So the worst thing that's going to happen to me that I'm fearing, like maybe death, I'll be with you instantly. Like, to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. So, and he's talking himself through, these fears don't mean anything, because even if that happens, I'll be with you.
Yeah. Definitely an influencer, definitely verbal processor.
Yes. And so he's talking himself through, and I think we need to do some of that. I think we need to go, wait a minute, where will this actually go, and why am I afraid? And just start exposing darkness, because that's what fear does. It hides in corners. So expose darkness with light and talk it out. Talk it through to its nth degree. And the very end of that fear will mean what? And then what? Since you know God, you're with him, or whatever it is. And so expose the falsity of that thing. And then invite Jesus into every fear. Lord, Spirit of truth, wisdom, revelation in the knowledge of Jesus, come and expose this fear for what it is.
Man, that is so good. So you're definitely not, so something comes and a normal response is, oh no, we need to be afraid. And so you're not saying, well, just ignore that. You're saying, look at it through the context of kingdom. So
Maybe acknowledge
and then
that
appropriately
that's what you're
deal with
feeling.
it.
Correct.
What's that, Prudence?
Well, you have to acknowledge that that's what you're feeling. I think so many of us are very unaware of our emotions and our emotional state, and the fact that we live in a daily life cycle of fear.
Yeah.
It's the normal. It's like what we've felt forever.
Yeah.
So it's important to analyze, stop and take a look at
Yeah, that's so
yourself
good.
and why you're going into these different directions. I mean, if you don't want to live in a pool of fear your whole life, this is what you have to do.
A cesspool of
It is
fear.
so
You
good.
have to just stop and actually pay attention to what you're doing.
Yeah.
And then figure out the roots of all of that.
Yep.
And get help to eradicate that if you need it.
Strategize. Be as pointed on why these fears are coming, and understand that it's a strategy of the enemy to come. Go back to what I said in the beginning. There is a spirit of fear. Right. And so how do we make sure that we have a strategy to overcome those fears? Because they do talk about our calling. They are tailor-made, as you just mentioned. And so we want to make sure that we're operating in faith. So I don't want to just spend my life exposing fear.
Right.
I don't want to just spend my life overcoming fear.
Right.
I want to spend the majority of my life doing the things that cause faith. Because if I get more faith, that will overcome my fear. So Lord, where are the things that I'm lacking? Where are the open doors? If there's anything that I'm allowing, if I've noticed myself having irrational fear, part of that is a spirit. But Jesus said, Satan has come, but has nothing in me. That means he'll find no place in me. So Lord, if I've opened up any doorways to fear, I ask that you go back. If it's a generational spirit of fear, then Lord, if my family's opened up any doorways to fear, I want to go through that. I repent. I renounce any association with the spirit of fear or any mindsets of fear and that type of thing. And you start to go meticulously through and close the doorways on that, and then spend more time going, all right, let's get the authentic truth inside me. Because that's really what's going to, if you can't cast it out, you'll crowd it out by truth.
Right. Wow. Wow. Did you have some?
Well, largely what you're explaining is a deliverance process. And especially, I mean, because every single one of us has pieces that we've picked up and traumas that actually can inject fear into us that we've had to live through or see or whatever the case is, that have put slivers of fear into us because of that. So that can go away.
Yeah. Yep.
We can get rid of that.
Yeah. Faith is designed to get into your emotions. God said, whatsoever thing, if you believe that it'll happen, and whatsoever things you desire. And so you connect your desires and your emotions to the faith realm, it'll go viral inside of you. You'll be like a pit bull. You can't get off of that thing.
Right.
Also, though, if faith gets into your emotions, if fear gets into your emotions, that's hard to get out. So you got to sort of back out of that thing and say, tell fear to leave your emotions.
Yeah.
And just begin to walk that out and just go, hey, you've come into my emotion. And as soon as it hits your emotions, it's almost like it goes 3 notches, sometimes 10 notches up.
Yeah.
And so you got to sort of back out of that a bit and just make sure that you ask God to cleanse your emotions from those fear, because that's like watching a movie. And you'll remember that clip for the rest of your life if you let it.
The enemy will just use it. He'll use that. Oh, that's my ticket in. That's my backdoor pass.
Yep. Yep.
So I love this. So we're looking at this situation. This is the second of a 3-part series. So you need to go watch the first one. But I feel like if I was to summarize what we talked about here, it's that there's a lot of fears right from the garden. It was the tool that the enemy began to use. So this is universal human thing. It's a universal human weakness, fear is. And Satan is a very good student of who we are. So he's tailor-making fears that match with who we are to make them more powerful, make them more real. So knowing that it's a tool, knowing that the enemy is using it against us, that's one of our first weapons against it. And saying, let me do 2 things. 1, not deny the truth of what's happening and pretend like it's not. That's not how I battle fear, is pretend like there's not things to be paying attention to. So I don't mean to say afraid of or concerned, paying attention to. So people have these fears, like the number one fear here is corrupt government officials. There's a reason. It's completely valid that there are corrupt government officials. That's something we need to pay attention to, but what's the kingdom approach? Yeah. And it's not to let that control our lives. Now, we might do something about it. That one's a little bit fuzzy, but maybe it's like economic collapse. So we might do something about it. We might decide to save more food to be prepared in case economic collapse happens. We might get our financial accounts in better order because that's something that's possible. It's on the potential horizon. So we're not saying pretend like things aren't valid. But what we are saying is you can't allow that even for 1 second to corrupt the way we approach the world. So we have to have a kingdom perspective. So I think this is super, super important. And because if you go all the way back to Genesis, we see it as an example of Satan's first attack. We know that like we're all struggling with it. So if you're listening to this and your heart's beating in your chest, then also you can relate to this. So I would just encourage you to go back, watch the other episode. Definitely take a second, like and subscribe this. Take a second and share this out as well. And also, you can find more amazing program. This Together We Build is produced by Eagle Mountain TV. You can find other amazing programs, including A New Era by Bobby Haaby over at eaglemountain.tv. So you want to check that out. Is amazing programming there. Some really great stuff. So you can find all of that. We've got an app now, which you can download on the Apple and Google store. So definitely check that stuff out. Also, if you want to support this ministry, you can hop over to eaglemountain.global, click give. You can support our ministry there. That helps us keep all these shows, programs, podcasts, live casts, interviews, all of the things that we're doing helps keep all of that moving forward. So we would definitely appreciate that. Also want to hear from you guys what you like, don't like, and so forth. If you're watching this live and you put in the comments, put in there what you've thought about it, take a second, share it out there, and we'd love that. We'd appreciate that. All right. Thanks, Bobby. Thank you, Prudence. And we will see you guys on the next one. See you later.